afternoon. You're watching Closing Trades right here in ET now with me, Aisha Faridi. I've got Vinny Motiwala as well joining in on the show, and we're okay. We haven't seen much of a damage really come by for our markets, but no meaningful gain either. So just been very sideways and range bound in this acutely truncated trading week. But of course, you've got expiry as well to deal with. So that said, we're down about almost 50 odd points for the futures right now, still clinging on to that 22K mark. It's the broader markets which are seeing a better move today. So about a 1% tick coming in for both the Nifty mid as well as the small cap indexes. And if you were to really collate the list of the bigger movers today, that's largely from within the broader end of the market itself. So Interglobe Aviation, that's flying high, nearly 6% in trade. Lalpat Labs is up 5.25%. These stocks will just come up for you on your screens. Interglobe Aviation is holding up very steadily. Lalpat Labs, a 6% tear up coming in on that stock right now. Interglobe has climbed up almost to that 3,500 mark. MFSL, Oracle Finance, these are some of the other buzzers in trade as we speak right now. And Gujarat Gas as well is recovering further in trade after the move all through last week. That stock holding up 4.5% as we speak right now. Within the Nifty movers, it's largely L&T which has picked up weight, ONGC which is seeing a meaningful move, Adani Ports holding out okay, and BAJAJ Finance, that's your top leader today. That stock holding up 2.5% as we speak right now. But Vinny, what about the stock-specific movers?
Absolutely. So in terms of stock-specific movers, let's pick up Skipper Limited. That one is buzzing away in trade after we are seeing that InCred has initiated coverage on this one. They've maintained a buy rating on this as well. So yes, a positive note coming in for Skipper. That's what we're keeping an eye out on. Other than that, you did mention the aviation names. So Indigo obviously flying high in trade after we have the brokerage note. I beg your pardon. A brokerage note that has come in on Indigo as well from UBS. They've hiked the target price to 4,000 rupees per share for Interglobe Aviation. So keeping an eye on that. We also have, other than that, SpiceJet that's in focus after we're seeing that they made a settlement to resolve around 755 crores of liabilities. This announcement just came in a short while ago. And this is for the Export Development Canada. So this is a resolving the liabilities that they're there over there. And that's keeping the stock a buzz as well. Overall, yes, other than that, we're seeing Hindustan Copper, we have Industars, Muthoot Finance, HAL, which is in focus on the back of an order win that they have as well. That's in focus on the back of this big order win that there is a HG Infra on the smaller side as well on the back of an order win. RVNL2 on the back of an order win is in focus, and that's how we're looking at it in terms of more stock specific moves, news flow moves in the mid and small cap space, and that's what is buzzing in trade. But let's bring on board Kunal Bothra, Naresh Mirani joining in with us right now to talk to us about the markets as well. Thank you so much as always for joining in with us, and good afternoon. Kunal, today let's talk about aviation, right? We have both these stocks in focus, SpiceJet as well as Interglobe. Now, normally if one has to play the aviation pack, everyone only looks at Indigo. But if SpiceJet is resolving those matters that are there in terms of liabilities, what are the charts indicating, or would you still only be betting on Indigo?
Yeah, I'll still bet on Indigo. I think that's a more formidable one. So what you want, when you're trying to pick up stocks from a relative sector, is that you need to lower the beta of the, or you need to find stocks which have significantly low beta, high sustainability of trends, and I think all of that fits up quite well with a stock like Interglobe Aviation. You look at the last 1 year of chart from I think 1,800 odd rupees. The stock has now jumped up to 3,500 approximately. So the move in the last 1 year has also been very stable for Interglobe Aviation. It's not been met with a lot of volatility, and very sharp kind of corrections. It's been very slow, gradual move for the stock in the last 1 year also. So I would probably believe that that's a stock to look out for. Even in the last 1 week, 10 days, the stock had shown some bit of correction or mild volatility, but then that was confined into a range of 150 to 200 points out for Interglobe Aviation. I think that's a very strong indication that this is a more of a strong stock, as well as the trends should be sustainable for the stock going forward.
Right. Naresh, any trend that you're picking up in the market? Afternoon, firstly, it seems that it's the broader market once again, which is sought after the recent decline.
So good afternoon. Yeah, the trends which we see are very stock specific. So metal as a pack has been doing well. So you have Tata Steel holding on around that 145 to 150 mark and bouncing back sharply. You have Hindalco, which has given a short-term range breakout. You have Tata Steel, Steel Authority of India also holding on well. So metal as a pack looks interesting. PSU banks have recovered well from the recent lows, and on dips that become a buy. So structurally, the next one to follow is when can private banks really do well? You have ICICI Bank holding above the 1050-70 mark, but the momentum is not there. You have Axis Bank, which has come down to a very important support around 1030. So going forward, banks could be the most interesting place, say, going into April as such.
Okay, let's talk some of the individual stocks as well. While, of course, Interglobe Aviation is holding out well, look at Gujarat Gas, look at ONGC. Some of these, oil and gas plays are once again to the fore. Naresh, ONGC, a meaningful comeback there, and a Gujarat Gas, decent uptick of about 4.5% as well coming in. Any trading opportunity here?
So I would go with ONGC even at current levels. The trend has been strong. It was a stock which finally broke out above the 180-200 mark, and since then the trend has been strong. After that, finally we got into some bit of a correction from 285 to 250, a 10% correction done, and recovery has started. So the trend is strong. Eventually, I would expect again to cross 285 and head higher. So for now, the stop loss shifts to 255 and dips to 260-65 remain a buy for ONGC.
In fact, since we're on the subject of oil and gas names, here's Dinshaw Irani and what he told us about what his preferred ideas are from within the oil and gas space.
We in fact added to the names. Once the correction built in, we added to the names, and we are very comfortable here. In fact, even after that 2 rupee cut or whatever that cut was, which was undertaken, it was mainly to get them in line with the long-term averages on the margins per se. I mean, they're historically the regular marketing margins that they had was around 3 rupees. They were earning around 6 odd rupees as such in margins, and obviously the cut was to get them in line with those margins. And that's what we realized. We said, okay, now it's not about pandering up to the election season per se, but it's mainly to get them back into regular business mode. So they were allowed to earn these windfall margins just to make sure that they back up on their profits per se before they take a cut, because they did suffer earlier.
Okay. Those were about OMCs as well. But Kunal, today, what is seeing good volumes also is something from the railway side. One is IRFC when we look at it. RVNL, obviously, we've seen those auto wins coming in. The run-up keeps coming in for these stocks. Is there still room for it on the charts? Do you think that there's still an up move that one could expect in these railway stocks as well?
I definitely think so, Vinny. I think there is a lot more scope to try and make profits, or at least look out for more better buying opportunities into these kind of pockets, because what has happened is over the last 2 months from I think January top, when these stocks made a high for themselves, there's been a correction of at least 30% to 35% broadly for these stocks. Now these are very sharp corrective numbers for stock prices. So irrespective that whether these stocks have run up 2x, 3x in the last 1 to 2 years, a 30%, 40% correction is a good enough correction for these stocks. And if it happens in a very short span of time, that's what we've seen for the railway names. To try and digest the corrective phases. What we've also seen is that the recovery which has followed post the correction for these names is on slight higher volumes. So that's an encouraging sign that we are now looking up at building up of long positions, building up of fresh delivery buys into these stocks. These stocks are making fresh swing highs on the hourly charts, and I believe that phenomena could get replicated on the daily as well as on the weekly charts for these names. So I think 30% odd correction for these stocks from their previous swing highs is a very good level to try and buy or accumulate further.
Okay, sure. We'll keep an eye on these stocks as well. Still some room left for an up move, given that we saw a bit of a correction on that front as well. But NSE has announced the changes in the Nifty 50 and the Nifty Next 50, and the rejig will be effective from 28th of March, and this adjustment is set to happen a day prior. So Shriram Finance is set to be included in the Nifty 50. Which are the other stocks which will be in the inclusion-exclusion list? Somit is joining in with us. What is the impact on this as well? Somit, take it away.
Well, a host of stocks that remain in focus on the back of the NSE changes that will be effective from March 28, but the flows regarding these changes are expected to happen on March 27. Now, this stocks that we'll be talking about will be in focus on the back of the cumulative flows that are expected to come in Nifty 50, Nifty Next 50, Nifty Bank Index, and the CPSE Index. Now, stocks that are expected to see the highest amount of inflow include the list of Shriram Finance, which is expected to see a net inflow of close to $188 million, which is nearly 4 times its 20-day average volume. Apart from that, it's HDFC Bank, Jio Financial, NTPC, Adani Power, PFC, REC, Mahindra & Mahindra, Bharti Airtel and IRFC, and these stocks could see an inflow of anywhere between 28 to $94 million, and these inflows are largely on the back of either inclusion in the index or because of weight increase in the index, which will be effective from March 28th. Similarly, on the outflow side, SBI is expected to see the highest amount of outflow of around $103 million owing to its decrease in the weightage in the Nifty Bank Index. UPL will see an outflow of $95 million, which is nearly 5 times its 20-day average volume, and this is because of getting excluded from the Nifty 50 index. Apart from that, it's ICICI Bank, ONGC, PI Industries, Coal India, Reliance Industries, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Bharat Electronics and Infosys, which could see an outflow of anywhere between $16 to $77 million tomorrow on the back of the changes that we are expecting owing to the changes that NSE has done in its index.
And we're back with the latest edition of Times Now Summit. And over the years, Times Now Summit has been championing pertinent national agenda points where India's leadership, leading thinkers and national influencers come together to define action plan for India's progress. Themed India Unstoppable, this year we will focus on charting India's remarkable journey and its increasing influence on global stage. Join us on 27th and 28th of March in New Delhi and watch the who's who of political corridor share their views. Do stay with us for all the highlights and all the action as the action begins here only on Times Network.
Let's take the discussion forward on fundamentals with Gautam Sinha Roy joining us, Executive Vice President and Fund Manager at ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. The patient long-term money. Gautam, afternoon. Thanks very much for your time. There was a bit of a shakeout in the market. I wouldn't call it a major sell-off because if you look at the BSE 200 or even the broader market indices, at one point in time, 40-45% of that components were down 20 to 50%. Did you participate? Because you guys are actually looking at, shakeouts of weak markets to add positions. Did you participate in the last 1.5 months in the broader market sell-off?
Hi Ajay, thanks for having me here. I think that was a very pertinent observation. See, the market construct remains very positive, and when the long-term structure is positive, and as you rightly mentioned, you are managing really long-term money. These kind of shakeouts do give you an opportunity to get into stocks which you always wanted to add to your portfolio, but we're a little bit wary of the valuations, right? And as you rightly again mentioned, while the broader market correction was not very sharp, but individual stocks did correct a bit more. Yeah, it was a bit of an opportunity, but I won't say that it was a massive opportunity, to be honest. Unlike what had happened during that COVID period, where while it was a very short-lasted opportunity, but the fall was very sharp. This time, both it was very short span of time, and it was not a very sharp correction. And the correction, if at all, was prominent more in the small cap space, which were looking a little bit frothy also. So one could say that one had just started to add to some of the positions that one wanted to, but the opportunity was not big enough, to be very honest here.
More steeper, juicier prices perhaps, and the moment it started off, it just got over. Maybe that was the feeling you. Okay, let's talk about some specific areas of the market. There are some. What are your thoughts on the aviation story in India? So there are two ways to play it. One is from 100 odd airports. Now we are slated for another 200-300 airports in the next 7-8 years, right? That's the visibility. Yes. And there are only two ways to play it. One is housed a bigger company, a conglomerate one. The other one, of course, is there. The third way to play it is via participating in big block deals by some of the founders which have been participating. How are you playing the airport theme?
I think if you look at from a demand side, even for the last 20 years, almost 20 years, I would say this has been one of the highest volume growth industries on the consumer side. I don't think there is any doubt on that. What has happened additionally in this post-COVID world is because of the troubles of some of these suppliers, especially the engine suppliers. I'm seeing on the supply side also a little bit constraint is now creeping in. Airport supply in India has kept up pace to a great extent. It could be better, but it has been, now we have some of the finest airports in the world. And it's not just me saying that, I think the rankings are there to prove that. So supply side from an airport side, which used to be a constraint if you think about 10, 15 years back, that has caught up very importantly. And airlines are benefiting a bit because of the supply side pressure from the engine suppliers and other ancillary equipment suppliers. So airlines seem to be a much better place to be in from a nearer term perspective. But we also see that globally, when airports become very large, they also start developing those non-aero revenues, which can be anywhere up to 40-50% of the revenue pool of some of these larger airports. And as these airports become transshipment hubs for global passenger traffic, I think that is the next phase of development for Indian airports, which is what we need to look at very positively. Not that we have too many direct plays on this, to be very honest. We have one direct and one sort of part of a conglomerate. But this is also going to be an interesting area of opportunity for the next 10 years. And I think from an airport development perspective, we have continued to do a phenomenal job, just like in any other infrastructure area in India. If you look at the last 10 years, the infrastructure starvation that India historically used to have is finally getting solved brilliantly. And we all are sort of benefiting from that. And as market participants, we have an opportunity to participate in that.
Gautam, since you are long money and you would be looking at the PSU space, well invested in there as well, wanted to understand where within the PSU pack, ex banks of course, do you still find value on the table for the long haul?
That's a very good question, actually, because when you look at the PSUs, other than banks where they have obviously a very dominant presence still, if you see some of the utility sectors, especially the conventional power utility, that is where the dominance of the PSUs in the entire value chain, right from equipment to actually the utility, is very high. So I think that becomes a very obvious place for us to be there in the power sector through PSUs. Similarly, in the oil and gas space, of course, there's a behemoth there, which is a private company. But after that, in the traditional refining and distribution business, it's dominated by PSUs. So that's another area. Not that necessarily we are very big, holders of all these subsectors, but these are two very prominent sectors within the PSUs which stand out. I think the other bit where there is a fair bit of PSU participation, maybe not so much reflected in our portfolios, would be the railways, where you have a plethora of maybe somewhat smaller companies. Now some of them are actually part of large cap too, which are PSUs and which are benefiting from the robustness in the railway system. Last but not the least, by any means, is the defense sector, where you have at least 2-3 behemoths who could potentially become even larger companies and hopefully in the future become part of Nifty, because what is happening in that sector is clearly a domestication of production is being emphasized with the government. We are seeing domestic share of the overall spend in defense going up, which is accruing as revenues to these companies largely. And they have developed technology capability. They have demonstrated that. And that continues to be an area of interest for us.
Mm-hmm. So yes, those are the baskets coming in on the PSU side, some of the power names, defense names. Hi, good afternoon, Gautam. This is Vinny joining in as well. And what I also want to know is in terms of anything specific that you would look at in the large cap as well. And where is it that you see value in the large cap? Because now we do see a bit more focus coming in on the large cap side as well.
Yeah. So when you talk about value, then you start also wearing the 3-year hat, right? Because that's how you think of whether there is real value in the stock. And when you put that hat, you clearly see that large cap private banks, it stands out in terms of the value that they offer and specific names within that, of course, which stand out in terms of the value they offer from a 3-year perspective. But the caveat there, of course, is that the near-term challenges have been there. There was a merger issue in a particular bank. There has been this NIM cycle, which is still to play out completely. And added to that, of course, over the last few months, the liquidity situation has been unprecedentedly tight in an environment where credit growth is very high. So that is putting additional pressure on the liability side and on the NIM side for these banks. But these are very fine institutions. Many of them have come out of the previous credit cycle much more stronger, I would say. They have great balance sheets now, a better product mix. It's a matter of time, but I think there's great value in the large cap private bank space today.
A report this morning by an institutional brokerage saying that the TND space in India is likely to see a massive tailwind, both from domestic side and also there's a big capex on electrification, and even in the US they are going for a massive overhaul. So there are a few names which are sparking up in trade. Skipper 7%, Techno Electric 5%, transformers and rectifiers another 5% circuit. How are you playing the TND space? Not mentioning the names, but are you think they're expensive or are they good to go even from here, the TND lot?
So Ajay, when I step back maybe around 4 years back, starting off in this firm, I could, just like I'm saying that I can see great value in some of these private sector banks today, I could see great value in some of the transmission sector because it was completely ignored at that juncture. I think from a the transmission utility perspective, that trade, if I call it, has largely played out very well. And today the valuations are much more fuller from that perspective because these are utility sectors. They cannot grow at exponential paces. But what you are referring to is, of course, different. You are referring to the opportunity of future capex, not only in India, but more importantly in the US. And from there, there's an entire value chain, right from the conductor makers to the EPC guys who are and will participate in that value chain. And I would add to that the fact that even on the alternate energy side, be it solar most prominently, we are seeing Indian players capture that opportunity globally because of the broad basing of the supply chain that many of these Western countries want to have. And that will continue to win opportunity. That will continue to win opportunity. But there, one needs to look for moated companies. So my worry there, honestly, would be that it should not turn out to be a 2-year opportunity and then what, right? One wants to be more sanguine about the longevity of that opportunity. That is a subject of debate. But yeah, here and now in that space is very good.
Always good to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time out. On that note, we're going to take a very quick break. We're still holding out okay, just about mildly soft, but let's see how we actually close in for the day. Interglobe Aviation, by the way, is now up a mammoth 6%. It's on a tear at the highest point, and clearly it's the broader end of the market which continues to outperform the benchmark indexes. Back with closing trades right here in 18 hour. The closing trades are looking okay. It's a decent comeback from the broader market after that 15% correction that the index, the small cap index that is, has already seen in the past fortnight or so. And today it is the broader markets which are outperforming the benchmarks. Having said that, even within the large caps, there are some decent movers like a BAJAJ Finance, L&T, ONGC, Adani Ports, etc., which are holding out well. But, clearly the number of movers from within the mid and the small caps outshine. So Lal Path Labs, MFSL, Hindustan Copper, Interglobe Aviation, plethora of these names which are holding out quite smartly. Deepak Shenoy as well joins in on the show right now. But before I take it across to him, let me get in some closing trading ideas as well. Kunal, what's in your list?
Well, in terms of closing trade, I would look at Tata Steel as a fresh buy at current levels. The stock is looking attractive, closer to 150.51 where the stock is trading right now. It's also on the verge of a swing breakout on the short-term charts.
Right. Naresh, what about your closing ideas?
So that would be a buy on Hindalco, range breakout done for the last 2 months and good follow-up today as well. So this could head up towards the 580 mark in the short term.
Right, okay, let's bring on board Deepak Shenoy now. Deepak, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in with us on ET Now. And Deepak, let's just start by looking at what's happening in the markets, right? When you look at it right now, what is it that you are betting on right now? Where are you seeing that, you could find some value?
Honestly, we've had a bit of an interesting year. So January was very good for the small and mid caps, was okay for the large caps. Then the large caps have kind of made it up in the last couple of months, while small and mid caps have retreated. But in general, we're seeing this quarter itself as more or less a flattish kind of quarter overall. But the results which will start coming in April should show at least certain sectors start to show a lot more interest from both the commentary and the numbers. For instance, the power sector, some numbers from the semiconductor players or players in the semiconductor space, the infrastructure players, because this is usually the biggest quarter of the year, and correspondingly some of the rail, defense companies, and so on. What would have happened, though I expect that some of those companies will actually show muted results where they're dependent on government contracts, because most of the government contracts will start flowing in only after the budget in July this year. Things may be on a halt till then. So keeping that in mind, we're still very positive on the overall India story, not so much on the export story, not so much on the FMCG story.
The entire India story is also powered by a lot of this electrification names which are doing very well. We discussed some of the mid-tier TND plays, but I want to talk to you about wires and cable. Today, look at how Polycab, Universal Cables, or even RR Cable after a corrective phase has come back. How are you playing these wires and cable in your portfolio, or are you in the first place, Deepak?
No, we used to have Polycab, but after that situation with those raids, we were a little concerned about what's going to happen. So we're still waiting, in fact, for commentary from the company about what the position has been after that situation. I think that should get clear in the next 1 or 2 months. We like the sector. We've always liked it. We think FMEG, that is fast moving electrical goods, is probably a much better play in the market. All the players there, maybe save Havells, have been doing really well from a fundamental perspective, have solid growth ahead of them. But any issue like raids and all that stuff, they're not ED, I think the income tax rates. We just want to know the impact of them before we proceed. So like the stocks probably missed a bit of the rally, but that's okay because growth is probably still ahead of us.
Inside, do you think you panicked and sold out of Polycab? I remember you wrote a lot about it. Look at Polycab. I deliberately brought it up. It bottomed out exactly around the time you sold, 3,800 odd. It's back to upwards of 5,000 and probably going back to. Sometimes, in hindsight, does it give you a better picture that, one would have waited it out and see how things kind of pan out before selling?
We've seen both.
Right.
We've seen the situations where when things aren't clear, things get more murky and more unclear. If you had bought a Yes Bank on the time when the crisis came, you would have lost 99% of your money. Here you're just losing some of the upside. It's not like we didn't make a profit. We just got out at a time when we were not clear. It's fine. We can always. The point about markets is you should always be willing to get back in at a higher price than you sold. And eventually that's what's going to make you the money. The point isn't missing about 10, 20, 30%, but it's out of the 500% gains that you might make in a stock, do you make at least 300-400% out of that? So if you miss a bit of it, it's fine. As long as you have a process that says, well, I'm going to invest at some layer of clarity, which I'm okay. There are always risky bets to take. Powerful people say, well, I'm going to take this risk and I'm going to get in at the time of uncertainty. We are that person sometimes, but this time we were not. So, I have no regrets because we're following the process.
Deepak, hi, afternoon. Wanted to understand if there are any other ideas in the last month or so in the recent decline that has happened in the small and mid caps. Anything that you may have added to your portfolios?
Not yet, Aisha, because I think adding to the portfolio will require us to at least look at one more result, the March quarter. The December quarter was kind of okay. We didn't, see anything so useful that will add up more positions. But we're very interested in the power space. We're very interested in the industrial manufacturing space, B2B players. And we are actually either going to add more positions, add more to our current positions, or add more to some slightly new positions over there. I don't see massive opportunity being created in the last 2 months. It's just a 10 or 12% decline. Some stocks have fallen a little more. We've actually added more to our current stocks, whether it's railways, defense, some PSUs as well. We've gotten out of some of the financial stocks because I see the headwinds continuing for the rest of the year. But otherwise, nothing major. I think it's just business as usual. Add to your current positions and wait for results to make any new calls.
Okay, let's move on and talk about the holy cheer that actually happened for the quick commerce channels. Whether you look at Zomato's, Blinkit, Zepto, Swiggy, all of them saw a surge in sales yesterday. What were the items related to? How did it look like? Asta has got us a breakdown on that. Asta?
Well, Holi has added color to the e-commerce, quick e-commerce platform as well. If we talk about a single day sales, then Instamart, Swiggy's Instamart tops the list with about more than 7 lakh orders, followed by Zepto with 6 lakh orders, and followed by the Blinkit, which also have 6 lakh orders. If we talk about some fun facts which have people unique way of celebrating Holi. So a user from Lucknow literally spent whopping rupees of 28,830 rupees on Gujia on Swiggy on the specific day of Holi. Now that's a very unique style of celebrating Holi on the Holi day. He literally spent 28,800 rupees for Gujia. Secondly, Blinkit, according to Blinkit, it claims that the yellow is the most colored which was ordered from the platform itself. Also, Swiggy Instamart records 444 GPM, that is Gulal per minute. So, Swiggy Instamart also witnessed Gulal per minute 4,444 Gulals per minute. If we talk about other fun facts, it includes Swiggy Instamart. Also, a user ordered 900 water balloons from the platform, which was delivered in just 10 minutes. So, it's a long side party going on for all the balloons and colors as well. Alone in Bangalore, Bangalore witnesses approximately 5 lakh orders alone from the platform called Zepto. Also, Blinkit records highest order per minute. And not only the sales are restricted to colors or rangolis and all of it, but sales of juices and mixtures also top the list. Saw witness spiking due to the parties and holy gatherings and all. It also saw the spike, which is 2x as compared to the other. So the items which tops the charts from all the platforms are Gujia, Thandai, Gulal, water guns, balloons and white t-shirts. So these are the fun facts, these are the ways, several ways that people have celebrated in a unique style Holi this year, and all the quick commerce platforms have already broken their records as previous last year's Holi record.
Thank you so much for that, Asta. Surely we are seeing what is making the top of the charts, but let's focus to the selected chemical counters. The likes of Epigril and Sadhana Nitro are in focus. Why is that so? What's the buzz around that? Sharad is joining in with us.
Well, in focus, we are having these new companies which are the raw material manufacturers when you deal with them in the paracetamol space. Now, we are having chat with the dealers, some HNI buying coming in the counters of Epigril, which was earlier called Megmani Fine Cap. And also in small cap space, we are having Sadhana Nitrochem, where the buying is coming in from the HNI counters. Now, importantly, as per what Industry Connects have spoken to us, they have stated that there might be an anti-dumping duty on the works on the paracetamols raw material, which is PAP. Of course, the consultation process is going on and major announcement from the government won't be coming in because of the election code kicking in. But the raw material manufacturers, they tend to gain from this announcement, especially three names. Mostly all of them are the mid-cap and small-cap, Sadhana Nitrochem. We are having Epigril and even Valiant Labs. Now, importantly, this becomes negative also for certain manufacturers who are actually taking this as a finished good. So that will be a slight negative impact might be coming in for Granules India and IOL Chemical Pharma, because largely they are taking the imports from China. So that might get impacted, and that might get impacted in their costing as well. So this is what we are gathering from sources, and a strong HNI buying coming in Epigril also.
For that, Sharad, we'll surely keep an eye out on that. But, Deepak, let's just talk about then some of the chemical names, right? What's your thought on these chemical players? We've seen that, they were, in terms of fundamentals, numbers, nothing exciting that had happened for them in the last couple of quarters. But now we've seen a bit of an up move coming in from them, some bit of at least positive signs coming in for these stocks. What's your view on this space?
This might be a turnaround, but usually what we've seen is when the sector's fundamentals bottom out, then the prices start moving first, and then the fundamentals start showing an uptick. So we have some eyes on some names here, but then again, we're going to validate some of them with results. We're going to take maybe small startup positions starting early next month, primarily because if the cycle turns. It's been a little bit of a down cycle for them, 1.5 years. I think certain names will change. Over here again, some of the pharmaceutical API manufacturers may take a little bit longer to recover, I think, versus the pure play chemical names. Specialty chemicals may actually have more interest than commodity chemicals. So, but a lot of the names do both. Or sometimes one that is a little bit more heavy on commodity in one time and specialty or the other time. So it's a little bit difficult to make our picks right now, but we're going to look at the price action as an early sign and see if it's followed up by fundamental increases in profit and cash flow. And based on that, we'll probably take a call. This is a very useful quarter to make that distinction. So April may be a good time to start making those calls.
Talking of chemicals, Deepak, would you also look at a new area which is emerging among the chemical space by the name of performance chemicals? Stocks like Stereos, Performance, or even your Gujarat Fluoro and some other, which are doing a lot of EV related chemical work. Have you looked at that zone?
No, not specifically on EV related. I think relatively small part of business, though it may be interesting going forward. I don't have much of an idea of what layer performance chemicals does to the bottom lines or top lines of these companies. So I don't have a comment upfront, I'm afraid. But thanks for that. I'll take a look at it a little more. If they seem to. You said INEOS Tyrolution, is it? Or?
Yeah, there was a change of management in that company, by the way. I'll send you some good reading material offline around it. But the other area which is doing phenomenally well, Aisha just marked it, APAR Industries as well. APAR is also actually, I just checked, Aisha. APAR is
everyone's asking what's the buzz here. Why is this stock up the way it
APAR
is?
has got one of the highest spare capacities for ultra high voltage wires and cables. These guys, RR Kabil and all these guys are under 10% of revenue coming in. APAR is the only one, apart from Universal, which has got 25-30% of capacity. There's probably something happening in that electrification slash that, that entire area is buzzing today. Anything else you're spotting, Aisha?
The Nifty Bank, that continues to drag. Deepak, I mean, large cap banks, they were touted to be the go-to story star of the year, but really nothing has happened.
It's unfortunate, but I think it's just two things. There's a re-rating down, primarily because the interest margin spreads are reducing. We had an artificially wider spread because deposit costs didn't go up for a while, and now deposit costs are catching up. In fact, banks are losing CASA. As we're seeing, if you look at the weekly numbers from the RBI, overall current account and what are called non-time deposits. So the time deposits are more of the term deposits area. That's growing okay, but non-term deposits, which are callable at any time, current and savings account balances adjusted, is actually not growing meaningfully. That's also because both corporates are getting smarter and smarter in their cash management. People are using excess cash balances to invest in either money market funds on the debt side in the market or moving them to FDs. And that's crimping the cost. There is also a bunch of regulation that's restricting some of the growth-oriented parts of bank portfolios, including retail lending and certain forms of uncollateralized lending. The lending to NBFCs has been curtailed because RBI has curtailed what NBFCs can do also on lending. There is those factors. And then the biggest bank is HDFC Bank, which is facing a lot of challenges in terms of its merger dynamics. And I think it will still take some time to recover. So till the time that this heavyweight bank kind of, does not see a clear path to back to those 20% or 15% profit increase days, I think we'll still see a muted bank index as a whole. Some of the smaller banks may recover towards the end of the year because they're more aggressive and their balance sheets are in a slightly better place.
Right. Kunal, I just want to know in terms of a couple of names, if you could pull up the charts for, in terms of Voltas, Havells in this summer play. We've seen Voltas also see a bit of a run-up coming in. Anything exciting in these in terms of the charts for any of the consumer durable side?
So Voltas is a stronger name relatively in terms of charts. 3 consecutive, I think, months of price appreciation for the stock. I think from sub 1000 levels or 950 was the bottom which the stock had formed a couple of months back, and from there the stock is now about that 1100 mark. Very good price volume action which you're seeing for Voltas. I think that's a more distinguishing part about the stock price this time around, because in the last phase of correction and the last stage of the rally prior to that, the stock had seen some lack of volume built up. But the first stage of rally this time, the last few months, the stock has seen a much higher volumes for itself. The open interest is also on the positive side for the stock when we looked at the data point, especially when the stock moves up higher in periods of few weeks, when a stock moves up 5% to 7% higher for itself. So I think all of that augurs very well for the stock. Would be very bullish on the stock over the medium term time scale, and I think closer to 1250 to 1350 could be a target range potentially for Voltas.
Okay. Naresh, also in terms of, have you checked out the charts of something like when you look at it in terms of Oberoi Realty, Phoenix Mills, or in terms of the Realty play, anything that you would watch out for on the charts right now?
So Oberoi Realty is something which I recommended last week. The stock has broken out above that 1380 to 1400 mark, which was the top for the last 2 months. The stock had seen a good enough connection from 1550, 1600 levels. Good relative strength over the last few sessions, still looks promising. Could head up towards 1600 in the short term. In terms of Realty pack, my picks remain Mahindra Lifespace and Suntec Realty, which have been 2 large companies which have not gone anywhere for the last almost 2 years as well as 5 years relatively. So those are 2 mid-cap and small-cap names which look promising at current levels.
No, but Phoenix Mill, there is an issue. At around 2900, it actually lasts, if you pull up the last 6 months chart, this is exactly, it goes near 2900, 2800 and tops out right from there. This time, are you saying it may cross that level? Naresh, Phoenix Mills?
Looks interesting. The stock has this tendency to keep seeing slow and steady moves. So crossing 3000 would be a short-term possibility. But once it crosses 3000, the stock does not have a tendency to make 10, 15%, 20% moves after a new all-time high. So this is a stock where you want to sell on a sharp move and buy on dips. So the structure has been same forever for the stock. So even in the last 1 year, it has had such moves wherein every time it makes a new high, goes up 3-4% and then drifts lower. So now, as of now, it looks like starting a move towards 3000, 3200.
Deepak, how's the situation now in Bangalore on waterfront?
Now you just heard people ordering 900 water balloons. So no, it's not.
Especially on Holi.
It's not that bad.
Okay, things improved.
But I think the situation is tense in the sense of people are worried that water will be a problem. So everybody's taking precautionary measures. They haven't yet done anything like cut supply of water or anything like that. So at least where I am or the office or the home, there's no problem in supply of water. We're all taking more measures, fixing aerators in bathrooms and making sure usage of water-based washing is lesser.
Deepak, this is patchwork, right? This is short-term issue. The structural matter of supplies or better water management. You are from the startup community as well. At least rest of the India, we are seeing a lot of good quality startups also helping the government put kind of mechanisms into place which are better water management. Is work happening on that front? Are you seeing some good companies who are helping the government manage water crisis in a much more structural manner? Even Vatek Wabag, right? In Chennai, they have done some good work, and even overseas. Is there an opportunity?
I mean, I hope so at least, because I know there are lots of startups working on water management. In general, there are lots of people also trying to help the government from a non-government, either an organization perspective or an individual perspective. Many of them share their photos and developments on Twitter in terms of rainwater harvesting systems, in terms of filtration systems to STP, delivery systems. Most new apartment complexes have to have sewage treatment plants, otherwise they don't get an occupancy certificate. So that's happening across the board. There is a lot more work on rainwater harvesting that's happening. But I think you're right. There's no startup community effort, community-led effort. There may be individual companies doing that. Vatek, I think, it will be participating in some way in some of the initiatives taken over. But in Bangalore, the lake desilting has taken a lot more time. So the lakes haven't been able to be full. If your lakes are full of silt, the lakes will just overflow. So they've been desilting for the last 2 years, and there are organizations working with them for that as well. I think what India might eventually need is a lot more desalination across the coast, and perhaps river water for the inside or piped water. They've done it in South Sinai in Egypt, where they've actually pumped water up 700 meters from the shore from a desalination plant. And Bangalore is about 1,000 meters up. So there is hope. But but I think right now you're right. It's all patchwork, conservation efforts rather than efforts to supply 24-hour clean potable water. That is possibly what we need to look forward to. I don't see any major changes in that yet in terms of both government budgets or private participation.
Yeah, the water infra could also throw up a lot of investable opportunities as well. But Deepak, great to have you on the show as always. We'll let you go on that note. Let me just get in some BTST trades quickly before we wind up for the day. Kunal?
Well, I'll go with 2 buy calls. Hindustan Copper is the first stock which I would suggest as a buy. 300 is the target. Stop loss could now be trailed to 272. And the second would be BHARTI Electronics. That's a stock which is breaking out of that 200 barrier. So would suggest a buy with 214 as a target and stop loss at 193.
Naresh, what about your stock strategies, BTST?
So first would be a buy on Hindalco, a good breakout here in the short term and follow-up. Stop loss at 554, target price of 565. Second is a buy on Glenmark Pharma, related strength here as well. Stop loss at 947, target price of 980.
Okay, let me now hand it over to Vinny, find out how the day has been so far.
So absolutely, we started the day on a red note, and that's where the benchmark indices are ending as well. The Nifty is closing on down 0.4% in trade, just slightly off the day's lowest point, but 22,000 is what it's managing to grip on to. Other than that, let's look at the Sensex as well. That too closing with cuts of almost 0.5% in trade, down almost 350 points for the day. Broader markets, that's where we saw the green coming in, and that's where we saw the outperformance coming in since the get-go. Broader markets, that's in the Nifty Midcap as well as the small cap, pull those charts up. That managed to see strong gains of almost 1%, more than 1% for the Nifty Midcap. Small cap holding on to gains of 0.5% in trade at the end of the day. And a lot of these names that actually dragged the market, when you look at it in terms of the large cap names, we did have Reliance, which was seeing a bit of a fall coming in. So that's something that weighed on the Nifty 50. HDFC Bank, Infosys, ICICI Bank, all these are the stocks that weighed on the Nifty 50. While in terms of the mid-cap, what did well for the Nifty mid-cap today, when you look at it, in terms of the up move that we saw came in from Torrent Power, Dr. Lal on the back of a brokerage note. We had Oil India, Indus Towers, Max Healthcare, as well as Tata Chemicals, which managed to hold on to good gains in the mid-cap space. Skipper Limited, that saw very good gains as well on the back of a brokerage note that we saw this morning. And this was a brokerage note that came in from Incred, and they initiated coverage on Skipper. We had Avenue Supermarts, that saw a run-up in trade. Avenue Supermarts saw the biggest and highest level that we saw in terms of the share price coming in since almost October 2022 today intraday trade, and closing with gains of almost 3.5% is Avenue Supermarts. Other than that, RVNL, HAL, Mankind Pharma, Paradeep Phosphates, all these were the stocks that we saw some bit of a move coming in on the back of news flow today. And that's how we are wrapping our day. Broader markets doing much better than the benchmark indices.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.